Paul McHugh with Rayo Cook Heating and Air. We wanted to take a few minutes and go through air filters for your home's heating and air system. There are 3 basic points you should know about air filtration. First, you can cause long-term damage to your heating and cooling system if you get this wrong. Second, choosing the wrong filter can substantially increase your utility bill. And finally, the air quality in your home may not benefit from a better filter if you choose incorrectly. In fact, it could actually make it worse. The American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ASHRAE, writes the standard on everything HVAC. This includes the air filter rating process. The rating used for air filtration is MERV, which stands for Minimum Efficiency Reporting Value. There are other proprietary ratings out there, but most tend to offer weighted results that lean towards making their product look better than it really is. We only use MERV at Rayo Cook because it is non-biased and it's the most accurate. The MERV scale will range from MERV 1 to MERV 16. It assigns an efficiency rating in percentage based on the size of particles the filter can capture. A higher MERV rated filter not only captures smaller sized particles, it captures more of those smaller particles. Particle size is based on microns. The average human hair is about 100 microns in diameter. The MERV rating is broke down into 3 groups. Particles sized from 3 microns to 10 microns, particles 1 to 3 microns, and very small particles that are 0.3 to 1 micron in size. Most modern air filters start about MERV 7 or higher. For example, a MERV 11 rated filter will capture about 85% of particles between 3 to 10 microns. As the particles get smaller, the filter captures less. It will only capture about 20% of particles sized at 0.3 microns to 1 micron. A MERV 13 filter will capture more particles at a smaller size, and a MERV 16 does even better. So why not just install a MERV 16 filter and call it good? This is where things can go bad quickly. When you walk down the filter aisle at your local store, you have a whole bunch of options, different filter colors, different claims and ratings. It can be confusing. So how do you know what filter is best for you and your system? First, we do not want to harm our HVAC system by installing too restrictive a filter in an attempt to have cleaner air. As a general rule, the higher the MERV rating, the more restrictive the filter. If you pick wrong, you could cause yourself a higher utility bill. What's more, the better air quality you think you are getting could actually be worse. You need to know the size of your air conditioning system. If you know how many tons of cooling is installed in your home, then and only then can we start to size the filter correctly. For every ton of cooling installed in your home, we need to supply through your filter 400 cubic feet of air per minute, or 400 CFM. You simply need to multiply the total tons of cooling times 400 to get how many total CFM flow through your filter in order to not have a problem with your HVAC equipment. For instance, if you know you have a 3-ton unit, you would simply multiply 3 times 400, and the total CFM through the filter needs to be 1200 CFM. Every filter has a resistance rating as well. The fan in your HVAC system has to be able to compensate for all of the restrictions that are found in most systems. Your air filter is one of those restrictions. If we create too much restriction with the filter, your fan will not be able to compensate and provide the amount of cubic feet per minute, CFM, of air that your system needs. We do not want to exceed 0.2 on this resistance rating. Most filters have resistance ratings and CFM ratings printed right on them. It's right on the filter. We strongly suggest knowing the resistance rating and CFM flow rate on any filter that you install. Not knowing is a guess, and you run the risk of negative results with air quality and negative results on your heating and cooling equipment. So now you know how many CFM your system needs and the fact we do not want to exceed 0.2 on the filter restriction scale. So we'll take a look at some examples of filters that you would see at Home Depot, Lowe's, True Value Hardware, Ace Hardware. We'll start with one that says that it's MERV 5. And this particular manufacturer calls this their basic filter. The next one is going to be colored red, and it says right on it that it is a MERV 11. And this manufacturer says that it's Allergen Defense Extra. And the next one up would be a MERV 12, and this manufacturer says that it's allergen, bacteria, and virus. Okay, and then the next one up is going to be MERV 13, and this manufacturer says premium allergen, bacteria, and virus. So now what we can do is look at the actual filter rating on the filter and see how applicable this filter is to the size system that we're using as an example. Okay, so these are all 20 by 30 filters, 13 MERV on the top, and the worst is your 5. The same scale here, our ASHRAE scale here. Clearly we can see the MERV 13 removes more than the MERV 11 on those categories, and even more, of course, than our MERV 5. But we need to pay special attention here to our CFM. So it says right here, airflow rate. CFM is going to be the volume of air. So that 1230 was our 3-ton offering, if we remember. We want 1200 CFM for a 3-ton unit. But look at our pressures. We're right at or over what we don't want to exceed at 0.20 on the pressure of our fan. So when we look at initial resistance, the resistance reading here, we don't want to be above this 0.2 rating ever. Initial resistance is meaning the filter is clean. So as this filter gets dirty, that resistance will go up and the airflow will go down, and it will happen quickly on these type of filters because they're only 1 inch thick. So for instance, this MERV 13 that's grabbing all of these particles at a very high rate, it doesn't have a lot of place to put them because it's only 1 inch thick. Even though it is pleated, okay, that helps some. However, when they say 90 days on this filter, I would be very careful with that because you're already, for instance, on a 3-ton unit, you're already up against the pressure that we don't want to exceed. For fun, let's look at a 4-ton unit. So 400 CFM times 4 ton, our airflow rate, they're giving us 1540 on this rating. They're all 1540s. Okay, the 1540 is going to be close enough to 1600 CFM. This filter right out of the box, way too restrictive. The next one down, MERV 12, it's rating at 0.3 clean. We don't want to be anywhere near 0.2 max. 0.28 on the MERV 11, 0.31 on the MERV 5. So on a 4-ton unit, it is virtually impossible to move enough air through this filter and be correct. So again, we only have 1 inch thick capability here to be able to catch all of these particles that the filter will catch. It does have the ratings, but once it catches them, what is it doing to the resistance of your airflow and your fan motor and your lack of airflow when it starts to load and when the AC unit is not delivering the tons of air that you're paying for because we're restricting the airflow so high. So we'll look at some other options here, but the 1 inch filter can be problematic in California because most of our surface area, the length times the width of this filter, there's not enough surface area to allow for the loading of the filter, especially on these more restrictive filters that can catch all of these particles. You've got to have a place to put them, and we'll go through that. So basically, this is going to be a filter grill that you'll see on your ceiling. This is what opens where we change our filter, and this is a common issue that we'll see in California with the length and the width of the filter grill not being enough square inches of filter to be able to compensate for the restriction of the filter. And what will happen with regards to air quality and performance of the system. So this is just a small 12 by 12 filter grill so that we can handle it easy for the video. But when we open this up and we take the open the grill here, what we see is a track. So when we put a track in this filter grill, that's to hold a 1-inch filter. So when we put the filter in that's too restrictive, what we don't accommodate for and what we don't talk a lot about, which is a major deal, is what's called bypass. And for instance, if we're putting this is a MERV 11 filter, but if it's too restrictive for our airflow, not only do we not get the flow to our equipment so that it works correctly, we get other unintended consequences. So when we put this filter in, if it is way too restrictive on our fan, that fan is going to get its air wherever it can. So the fan, whether it's in the attic or in the garage or wherever the fan that moves the air through your ductwork is located, it's sucking air through this grill to get the air that it needs to cool your home. So when you look at these filter grills, you can clearly see the gap here. There's a gap all the way around here. Those filters are not sealed 100% airtight. So if you increase the restriction with a more efficient MERV rating, you literally can suck more particles past your filter, which is called bypass. So we're bypassing the filter. So we got this really good filter to catch the particles at a real high rate here, but a lot of the particles are going right by the filter because the pressure is too great on the filter, the resistance, and we're just sucking air around the filter. So what is done correctly is when you put your filter in every month or so, is what should be done so that you don't have bypass is you either use blue painter's tape or you can order on Amazon white painter's tape. It's not expensive. It's like $3 a roll. And you can tape that filter in so that you do not have any bypass whatsoever. So if you tape that filter in, basically something like this with your blue painter's tape, okay, you seal that gap, so you do it all the way around, that air is going through the filter, not through the gap. Now, if you don't want to look at that blue painter's tape, or it's in an area where you look up and you see it through the grill here, like that, then invest in some white painter's tape for yourself, and you just Google white painter's tape on Amazon, and you can secure yourself enough white painter's tape for 2 years worth of filter changing. So the unintended consequences of the wrong filter with the wrong pressure drop goes well above just starving the equipment for air. We have other issues with the equipment as well. So when you let air bypass the filter, on the other side of this is going to be the duct that goes to the unit. So when we look at this filter here on our ceiling and the air is going in here, okay, on the other side we're going to have a duct connected to it all the way to the unit. Well, that duct is in the attic, and that duct is probably not sealed airtight. So if you increase the restriction here and the resistance with a filter, you're going to cause whatever duct work is between this and your unit to suck more air through leaks out of the attic. And that's above, that's on the other side of the filter. It's not going to, that dirt and debris is not going to be caught in the filter. It's past it. And that's where you can make your air quality even worse by investing in too restrictive of a filter here and sucking undesirable air out of your attic. So it's important to know that bypass with most filter grills is a reality. We're going to look at a filter grill in a second that actually has experienced bypass and what to look for in an actual house, and show you that scenario. But it's something to really consider, is investing in some tape. So we talked about some options to improve the air quality by going with more surface area. Instead of a 1-inch filter, going with more surface area with a 3-inch filter. So let's take a look at what that can do for you. Okay, so now we have a 3-inch filter that gives us a lot more surface area and less resistance. When we look into that application, you can see that this particular manufacturer, it has foam, this gray foam all the way around, so it pretty much seals up any bypass that's going to be in the filter grill here. But you also need to know that when you put in these thicker filters, you just can't put filters that fit your hole and slip them in there and say, I got a better filter, because what will happen is you can have too shallow of box. So that when you open your filter grill, from the ceiling up needs to be at least 12 inches thick here, so that we can suck all of the air through this filter. If you have a box sitting right down on top of this, then the round duct is only going to filter the air. These corners will not filter the air, and we'll look at that on an actual house. There may be some modification needed to your sheet metal box and able to accommodate better air quality here. But that's a 3-inch, and that's going to do a much better job for us, because it's got all that pleating, as long as it doesn't have bypass, and as long as we have enough area above it, minimum of 12 inches from the ceiling to the can here, to be able to draw the air through. At Rayo Cook, we do almost 24 inches there, almost 2 feet, so that we can load and draw through all of that filter at an even rate, so that the particles go through the filter everywhere at the same rate. But that'll give you an idea on 3-inch filters. So here's a regular filter grill. And when we open it up, we see the customer has changed the filter recently, brand new white filter. So when we pull this down, we can see the bypass that we've been talking about. So in the back corner there, you can see all of that dirt there is on the upper side of the filter. So what that means is that dust has gotten by the filter, and if it's there, it's everywhere else in the system. So we know that we have filter bypass on this grill, and it doesn't matter how efficient this filter is, we've got air going by it. So you can clearly see all of the dust there in the on the unit side of the filter. Now here we have even more dust at the duct. So you can see all of that is past the filter up inside the ductwork. You can see it here. It's basically falling out of there, and that's air that you are breathing because it's past the filter. The filter did not catch it. So a perfect example, that filter that I just took out of there was a MERV 11, and a lot of its air was going right by the filter. You can also see this is a very shallow box, and we'll talk about the shallow box and the more efficient filter here with regards to the 3-inch. But understand that all of this ductwork here that comes off of the unit is above ceiling line. So all of this, any leaks or anything we have here, is going to allow air from the attic, which is above ceiling line. If we have a lot of restriction here, we're going to suck that air in to the airstream, and that's above this filter. So that's where, if we have a real restricted filter here, we can get negative results for sure. This is the example of the 3-inch filter put in a can that is too shallow. So this is one of those shallow cans that we were talking about. So this is a cutaway filter. This obviously would cover this whole opening. But we can clearly see here that when we pull this down, that plated off area there, you're not getting any air whatsoever through that filter. So this area right here is not getting filtered because it's blocked off. The box here is not deep enough. So this box should be at least 12 inches thick. And if we put one of these high volume filters in here, 3-inch filters in a can like this, it would fit. But the only thing you would filter is the duct. Out here on the edges, the filter would be hitting this shallow box and actually cause more restriction than a lesser quality 1-inch filter. So it's important to understand modification of this box may be needed if you want improved air filtration, and that's just part of the, doing the air filtration thing correctly. Of a filter that has been taped in the grill with a deep box, so we can see that this filter has no gap here. The tape, the white painter's tape, has sealed the gap. And when we pull this filter down, we can see how much area, deep box, that we have above it to draw all of the air through the filter into the duct. And that's very, very important. We also notice that there's absolutely no bypass in the duct at all, because the filter has been taped in and it has been sealed so that all of the air goes through the filter. So this is going to be the best of all worlds. This is a cartridge filter. This allows us not to have to cut more holes in the ceiling or deepen the boxes that are there in your ceiling now to try and compensate for high resistance of a filter or low surface area of the filter area. So this gets mounted on the equipment. For instance, if it was on a furnace in the attic, it would be put on the end of the furnace and filter the air right at the furnace. And you would not have any filters in your house. This is the only filter, and it would be up at the furnace. The beautiful thing about this filter is it has gigantic pleats and surface area. So the pressure drop across this filter is very, very low. It's about a 1.0 or a 0.1, 0.12 pressure drop at worst. So these filters are so good on flow, they can go easily 6 months and sometimes up to a year without replacing them. This is an application we use a lot, like I said, on our installations. And what we find a lot of times is if we're maintenance to the equipment, we just simply change the filter once a year for the customer, and you never have to deal about with filters and worry about bypass or the MERV rating or getting to the store and getting the right filter. It all goes away with a nice pleated filter in the attic. Now these also can go, if your equipment's in the garage, they lay down flat, and we can put the filter or the furnace or the air handler on top of the filter assembly. They're very heavy gauge metal to support the equipment. That would be another application, such as a closet as well. Or they can go, which is a normal thing in our marketplace in Sacramento. Sacramento Valley is horizontal like that in the attic. But the replacement of the filter, you just pop the door open. This media simply just slides out. You can see just how much surface area is in that media. It's dovetailed here at the top. So when you slide it in, it seals, and it's 100% bypass proof. The media, you can see, is cut long. So when you put the door on, there's no bypass on the door. And the door has a nice gasket all the way around it. Just a great product all the way around, and that's why we use it on our new installations. So let's break down all of this into a few key points. First, If you currently have 1-inch filters installed in your system, chances are you are already near, at, or over the restriction rate your system can handle in order to provide the volume of air that your system needs. It is a simple fact that most air filter grills are too small, way too small in our area. If you are lowering your airflow with a restrictive filter, you are lowering your equipment efficiency and probably raising your utility bill. You are also causing your system to work harder, a lot harder. This can only increase the likelihood of breakdowns and shorten your equipment lifespan. In most cases, 1-inch filters need to be changed at least once every 2 months or sooner because of their low dust holding capabilities. Second, what you think you are getting in better air quality probably is not the case, especially when too restrictive a filter is allowing air to bypass the filter or cause duct leaks that are past the filter to suck in dirty attic air into your equipment and back into your home. Third, if you desire better air filtration, increased surface area, a bigger filter, will win the day every time. When we can spread the filter restriction over a large area, we lower the restriction. 1-inch filters simply cannot spread the restriction over a big enough area. 3-inch filters will help a lot. 4-inch filters are even better. And the best scenario for you is a 4-inch filter mounted in a housing at your equipment, and that offers the best of all solutions. Your Rayocook technician has the meters and devices needed to take the pressure readings needed in order to ensure your filter is doing what it is designed to do and is not causing more harm than good.